morning, everybody. So there's been a lot of talk going on lately about, especially here in Tyler, Texas, about changing the name of schools that are called Robert E. Lee. Well, in the first place, I'm just absolutely shocked at this because people are so ignorant about Robert E. Lee. And in one place, you got to think about how our city, Tyler, Texas, was named after President Tyler, who owned bunches of slaves. He was actually publicly accused of taking his slaves and having children with them and then selling his children. So yeah, what are we going to do about that? And he was president of the United States. I'm kind of like Trump. Who's next? Washington? You know? Got a couple of things I want to point out. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible, but one thing that I want you to remember is Robert E. Lee was very passionate about what he fought for, but he was not fighting for slaves. Don't ever, 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 ever let anybody tell you that the Civil War was fought over slaves, because that is a dead, flat lie. Slavery was an issue that contributed, but slavery was not the reason for the war. The reason for the Civil War was because of states' rights. The Union was trying to take the rights away from the state to choose on their own if they wanted to allow slavery or not. So, yeah, don't let anybody tell you that it's about slavery, because it's not. Another thing I want to say is that Robert E. Lee didn't own slaves, as far as I know, but the blacks in Africa, all these people who complain about white people owning slaves, in the first place, none of my ancestors owned slaves, so I don't owe anything to you. And most of you in America today did not come from slaves. You came here from Africa on your own, or somewhere like that. But remember, the black people in Africa were selling each other to the slave traders. So you can't blame us. We're at fault, but you can't blame us entirely. You got to blame the people who were in Africa that sold your ancestors, because they were selling each other for the money. So there were black slave traders in Africa. Another thing I want to point out is Robert E. Lee he's a well-respected commander military commander. He was the commander of the Confederate Army. He was offered the position of commanding the Union Army, but he could not take it. And his reason for that was because he could not fight against his own state. He believed that the state was more important than the Union, which is the same way I feel. So, like I said, he was offered the position of commander of the Union forces, but he declined it. What does that tell you about Robert E. Lee? He could have gone either way. He was such a well-respected commander. When he went to surrender to Grant, when he walked in the room at Appomattox, all of the Union soldiers saluted him when he came in. The reason that the South lost the war was because of Sherman coming through and slashing and burning all our crops and destroying our railroad tracks and salting our fields and everything like that. So, yeah, Sherman, you won't see a statue of General Sherman in the South because he's very hated. Grant was a drunk. That's just a cold hard fact. He was a drunk. So that's what kind of general that the Union Army had. Lee was a very well-respected Christian man that had a conscience for his state's rights. So Lee was a very good man. You don't see us. Lincoln was the president of the Union. And on a side note, Lincoln, with the Emancipation Proclamation only freed slaves that were in the southern states that had seceded. It did not free any slaves that were in the north. So what does that tell you? And another thing you want to think about is I'm driving home and I'm having to deal with some traffic. Another thing you want to think about, sorry, dealing with traffic issues. Like I said, Lincoln was the commander of the Union, but he had absolutely no authority to free any slaves in the South. The South was its own country. That would be like us going and having a proclamation that said that Mexico was going to arrest and execute all the drug lords. We can't do that. That's a totally different nation. So Lincoln had no right with that proclamation. And like I said, Lincoln was the commander of the Union. Was not very well liked by the South. But you don't see us going up to Washington and tearing down the Lincoln Monument. And they're tearing down statues of our military commander, who's a military genius. Who's a very wise man when it came to strategies and all. He nearly won the war. America would probably be in a whole lot better shape today if the Confederacy had won the war. Real quick, I'm getting close to home, so I want to go ahead and wrap this up. But you're not going to be able to erase history by taking down monuments. History is history. You absolutely in no way can change history. Because the definition of history is stuff that has already transpired. How many of us can go back to yesterday and change what clothes we wore? Now we can change history in the present day. What we are living in the present today will be history tomorrow. That makes sense. So this is something that we really don't want in our history books, is to have another civil war over these monuments and statues and stuff, because it's not right. That's not what America's about. And these people are thinking that they can erase history by taking down the monument. If you come and try to touch something that I feel passionate about, it's not going to be taken very well. You're going to get hurt. And I can promise you that. So just remember, when you feel passionate about something, I know these people are passionate about Robert E. Lee in the opposite way that I am, but you have to remember, you're not going to destroy it by taking that down. That's destruction of public property. Those memorials were put up there to respect these men. These men are dead. Robert E. Lee fought hard. He was a formidable foe to the Union, and like I said, he didn't own any slaves. He was offered the position of Union commander of the military forces, but he did not take it because he felt that his state, he could not fight against his state because states' rights came first. It's the same way I feel. If states had, which is the way we have it a lot now, but if states have their own say instead of the Union telling us what to do, we'd be a whole lot better off. So that's my rant for the day. Like, share, comment. Be sure to comment. I don't want to start a war on here. If you start a war, I will flag your posts and they will be removed. So, but please do give me your polite feedback as to which side of the story you feel passionate about, and feel free to debate on there if you would like. Like, share, comment, and until next time, have a good day.